This week on the original Rochester Press Box.
My name's Pat Duffy from the Breakroom on CMF. I know it's soccer time. I don't want to hear about it from you on Twitter.
I'm Kim Berntson, also with the Breakroom on WCMF, and I'm going to tell you why this last game for Abby Wambach is going to be the most important in her entire career.
And I'm Mike Catalana. Hey, New York and LA, you need the sports stars more than they need you.
And I'm Toby Motyka from Channel 13 WHAM. We'll tell you why Bobby Bonilla's still getting paid. That's this week on the original Rochester Press Box. Hey everybody, and welcome to the original Rochester Press Box. I am not Bill Pucko, that much is plain to see. I'm Toby Motyka, sitting in for Bill today from 13 WHAM, but I still have my guests with me. On my right, Kim Berntson, the Breakroom on WCMF. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, this is fun.
A guy I know fairly well, sitting straight across from me, Mike Catalana.
I'm going to do just what I do at work. I'm going to be quiet and defer to you the whole day.
Yeah, that's totally what you do at work every single time. And a guy who never defers to anybody, truly. Pat Duffy, also from the Breakroom on WCMF.
So Kimmy's not a regular. Toby, you're not a regular.
No.
I'm not. Hey, I'd watch your back if I were you, Mikey.
You think they're
We're
coming
coming
after me?
I know they're coming after you.
Not they, we, all of us. But anyways, let's get started. Obviously, the big news, Abby Wambach and the U.S. women's national team advancing to the finals of the World Cup. Abby's last shot at this thing. They beat Germany 2-0, an upset, also in the way they did it. But let's be real. Is this team better off without Abby? For the second straight game, she came in late when the team already had a lead.
Are they better without her? I think they play differently without her. But honestly, because she's embraced this role, I don't necessarily think by choice. I mean, I think if she wanted to play more, I think she would probably want to play more. But even she admits, there are games like this now, you might have to go 120 minutes to play. She knows she can't be effective doing that. Because she's been such a pro, she's embraced this role of saying, all right, this is what they need, this is what I'm going to do. And when she came in that Germany game, I mean, she was fired up. Yeah. And she did contribute. She helped them. She's already scored a big goal in the cup. Look, she's already been the star. If she can win it being a secondary player, I think she's fine with it. Are they better without her? At times they seem to be. Right. They play a little faster, but it's almost like they're waiting for the adult to come into the room. Seriously, to settle them all down. And she did help. Yeah. She helped them there at the end. So I think all around, if they can win it, I think she'll be happy with it. But at times they do look a little more fluid without her out there.
Yeah, and let's be real, guys. At a certain point, they may need that adult. They haven't won this thing yet. Right. They beat the number one team in the world, but they haven't won it yet.
And I mean, they did look very good in the Germany game, but the road up to that wasn't so pretty. Right. And a team that's centered their entire offense around one player for so many years, it's going to take a little while to adjust. And I think that they've come a long way, but to say that they're a better team without her, I think is jumping the gun a little bit. I think that they might still need her out there in the final game.
Yeah, but as someone from Rochester and who's in the area and knows how important Abby is to this town and this city, is it really strange to not see her playing the role she's played all these times in the past?
No, let's be real. Any other sport, someone that she's been playing year-round for 15 years? Professional soccer year-round for 15 years. She's still a vital part of that team. Yep. So let's say they're better without her. It's not that big a deal to me. I mean, Walter Payton didn't score a touchdown in that 85 Super Bowl, right? He's on the downswing at that point. Did anybody say, oh, they didn't do it without Walter Payton? The only person that noticed that he didn't score was Walter Payton. Yeah. And Abby Wambach seems like she's doing just fine, screaming at folks from the bench, smiling. She was even breaking everybody down after the game against Germany. This is her time to coast. Have fun. Let her do her thing.
Now, the one thing I will say, and people who know the game a lot better than I do, but the one thing we all know about those set pieces, those corners, is where Abby excels, and they had so many of them in that first half, and they were giving away opportunities. Maybe in the regular play, there are times they look better, but boy, when they have Rapinoe with the corners and she's standing there in front, she is very, very dangerous. And they definitely missed her in the first half of the game with that, where maybe she could have knocked one of those in. So we may see that in the game on Sunday.
And the thing about soccer, you come in with fresh legs late in the game. Someone as physically dominant as Abby Wambach, you never know what can happen. She's going to be able to put one in. All right, we'll move on right now, take a quick break, but when we come back, we're talking the Buffalo Sabres ahead of schedule after their NHL draft success. We'll discuss. everyone. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. Toby in for Bill with Kim, Mike, Duffy, and we're talking the Buffalo Sabres. Man, it's easy to forget all of a sudden that this team was almost historically bad this past season, but we're feeling good right now. Jack Eichel, do you have his jersey yet amongst your many other jerseys?
I haven't yet. I mean, he's wearing number 15. That's what he said. They were actually selling the jersey the day before he was drafted on their website, One Buffalo was. But yeah, I'm pumped. And it's not just the Eichel pick. The Eichel thing is awesome. I've been waiting 2 years to have this kid come and be the savior. But the moves that the Sabres made the day of the draft, bringing in later the goalie from Ottawa, 23-year-old kid. He'll be 24 when the season starts. GMTM, Tim Murray, drafted the kid. He knows what he can do. And on top of that, you're bringing in O'Reilly from Colorado, and you get a couple of nice pieces on the side of that. But you have a legitimate 23, 24-year-old center. You're strong down the middle all of a sudden. You got O'Reilly. You got Eichel. You got the possibility of Gergenson's playing. Nathan Gerby could be your third. I'm not Nathan Gerby, excuse me. What am I blanking? Tyler Ennis could be your third center, a guy who was your starting center and lighting up. He was your lone bright spot last season. You're a left-handed defenseman and a decent power play away from being a playoff contender after you were 30th last year.
Yeah. And Evander Kane.
Yeah.
We're going to get a chance to see him play, and I think he'll be the kind of guy, for a lot of reasons, who will want to buy in. Mm-hmm. You know, he's going to want to prove to people, no, it wasn't me. Even if partially it was him, and we don't know the circumstances, he gets that chance now coming in, getting healthy, getting ready to go with a bunch of young guys.
One thing you have to give to General Manager Tim Murray, GMTM, as he's so affectionately called right now, is he has a plan. It seems like this guy went into this whole process with a vision. And he gets lucky here and there. You know, a player like Jack Eichel comes out and you're able to draft him at number 2, and to have some of these guys like O'Reilly, Kane be available, but you got to give Murray credit. He's had a plan, and he has followed it to the T.
And let's not forget, they have a new coach in place, too. So, I mean, this is a whole new regime, and, you know, they could still be making moves in free agency. So I don't even think he's done yet with everything that he's set out to do.
Yeah, one thing I want to see him do, help the Amerks.
Yeah.
You know, because we know they have prospects. They know have guys. There's some of these guys, I mean, we don't know yet who's going to end up coming down to Rochester, but you got to fill out that roster with veterans who can really contribute and play. A decade without winning a playoff series is too long. So while you need the development part, you can do both. And even Murray has said that. You can do both. You can win and develop at the same time. I think we need to see some winning here.
Well, you got a problem, what you brought up, right? The Sabres last year, whatever they were trying to do, whether it was lose on purpose or oops, we fell down, right? You brought a whole bunch of guys who are career AHLers to play in the NHL, like Matt Ellis. I love Matt Ellis, captain of the Sabres. Played an entire NHL season last year. Now, the only role you have for that guy is to go back and play in the AHL. He's not going to want to. He got his taste. And you got like 3 or 4 examples of that. So if you're going to find veterans to play in Rochester, you may have to go out and find new veterans. If I'm Ellis, if I'm a couple others, I'm not going back. What are you, nuts?
Yeah, but they may have to, though. I mean, those guys, Jerry D'Amigo, Phil Veroni, excellent AHL players. They're not NHL regulars. They're not. Now, maybe but Buffalo was the one place where they could have been playing in the NHL. You take Gianta, Molson, and maybe Ennis off the team last year. That's an excellent AHL team that the Sabres were playing with. So.
One name we somehow haven't mentioned yet, Sam Reinhart.
Yeah,
Where does he fit into this whole puzzle?
I think he's got to play up this year. I don't think you can, like Mike said, you got another question mark AHL team this year. Who are you going to have down there? I don't want to put a piece as valuable as Reinhart, former 2nd overall pick, down with a question mark team. Yeah. You got to have him skating with the pros. You got to have him up with Gianta and Molson and guys who can lead him along the way, because if you break this kid like they might have broken Grigorenko, who was shipped out of town, now you've blown a couple of drafts and you got yourself a serious problem.
You have to remember that these young guys sometimes need time to come along and get their work in, get some winning done. Also, the Amerks right now still need a coach, still need a staff. We'll see how that works out. When we come back, like it or not, stay with us.
And you don't need to be Native American to realize it is offensive. And it's not politically correct. It's the right thing to do.
He was an idiot for throwing him that pitch. The guy's phenomenal. He had no reason to give him anything, especially a fastball to hit.
It's simply that these two guys, Ronaldo and Tom Brady, are too good looking.
I like it, just don't admit to it.
Everybody wants to hate on the best in the world. He's here to stay, and he wants to build something big time.
The bottom line is, still nobody's going to like A-Rod.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. Toby with Kim, Mike, Duffy. We're going to start with Like It or Not. Kim, like it or not, Mike Hopkins taking over in 3 years for Jim Boeheim.
I like it. And I know a lot of Syracuse fans, you want like that big name to come in and take over the program, but let's face it, now in college basketball especially, it's not coaching, it's recruiting, right? I mean, the biggest part of the game with the one and dones now is you got to get the guys you want in there. And I think Hopkins, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's had a huge hand in their recruiting in that program. And I think you give Boeheim 3 years to really build a good base with him, and you let him go. And I think, so far so good with you look at Kevin Ollie in UConn.
Right.
And that's worked out so far. I know it's very early, but it's possible for them to come in and succeed in these kind of programs. Plus, you got the Syracuse name behind you. I mean, you're losing Boeheim, but I think that's a program that's going to be able to stay intact with Mike Hopkins coming up through the program.
Hopkins has essentially been with the program for 20 years since he joined up, and he's a guy who Brandon Trish, we just spoke to earlier this week, who was in Rochester, can't wait to see.
Here's what's going to be interesting. I think most fans are kind of what Kim's saying. This guy's been there, he deserves it. Let's see how everybody feels after those 9 ACC games, because we're going to get a preview of this, and we're going to get Hopkins coaching. Now, I look at it this way. I think this team, depending on what happens, may struggle a little bit this year, but we're going to see him be the head coach with Boeheim not there for 9 games. If it's not great, I think the narrative changes a little bit, and people go, wow, what are we getting? Maybe that's unfair to Mike Hopkins, but it may change a little bit depending on how that team looks in those 9 games.
Looks like we still have 3 more years to see what's going to happen.
Just one thing to think about. What name is more important in Syracuse basketball? The name Syracuse across the chest, or the name Boeheim, who your kid gets to go play for? If Boeheim goes away, does the clout of Syracuse go away?
I think you still have the dome. I think you still have the name. I think you still have the ACC. I think he's still the program now. He's not going to coach forever.
He's walking into a good situation, that's for sure. Mike, we're going to go back to you, Sixers fan. Like it or not, the direction of the New York Knicks after the draft.
Well, I like a couple of the moves they make. And look, Porzingis is a guy with talent they make, and then they make that trade and end up getting Grant. I mean, those are good moves. The problem I always have with the Knicks is, and Phil Jackson's going to be in this same spot too, there's this perception is they can't build, they can't do it like other teams because New York won't put up with it. Really? Look at what they looked at last year. I have to say, I don't think Phil Jackson has an easy job to do this, but I don't think they just roll out the checkbook and players start coming towards them. I think that makes it tough. I think they actually have made moves right now that are more for the future. And I think if they plan it that way, they will have a chance because they don't have the draft picks. They've got to get other guys. So I'm not going to kill him like I normally would. I don't mind what he's done so far, but I don't think, they open up the doors and everybody's coming to the Knicks. I don't think that'll happen.
But we talk future. Carmelo Anthony's not interested in the future. Can you keep him around?
As long as Carmelo Anthony is a New York Knick, their team will never be successful. You can't. Who you play with him? The guy takes 40 shots a night. And by the way, when did he become everyone christened him an NBA superstar when he walked in the door. Go look at his numbers from the last 10 years and compare him to other guys that play in the league. Yeah, he's getting the same amount of points. Look at his shooting percentage. Look at the lack of defense that he plays. And then you can't find a guy that plays defense with him. What are you going to play? Offense, defense all game long? You can't do it. Get him out of there and build that way.
And the triangle offense. This seems so dated at this point, doesn't it?
Well, back to Carmelo Anthony, though, I think he's also had a lot of off-court issues too. I mean, the guy's kind of a head case a little bit. I mean, he's not he's not a player that you build your team around.
No, clearly not. I think those days are done. One more. This is maybe my personal favorite. Like it or not, Duffy, Bobby Bonilla Day. Man's getting paid until 2035.
So what's he getting? 1.25 every year until
little below 1.2.
And this has been happening since what? 97.
Long time.
So this is the brilliance of the arrogance of franchises in New York. We're just talking about the Knicks, right? Yeah, we'll open up the checkbook. They'll show Carmelo Anthony is here. The New York Mets are so stupid, they don't know how to use a calculator. Bobby Bonilla fleeced these guys. At the end, his contract's going to be worth north of $40 million. And by the way, that's $40 million 10 years ago, and he knew about it. That's when $40 million was $40 million. This guy is going to be what? In his 60s? Still collecting $1 million paychecks from the Mets? Watching what the Mets have on the field? If the Bills did this, I'm a diehard Bills fan. There is no way I could give a dime to that franchise ever again. The money I'm spending on tickets, you're handing off to a guy that hasn't played in 10 years.
Double the money of Matt Harvey.
But if you look at it, they would have given him the money. I mean, they've wasted money up front on guys. This deal just happens to be one of those to give Bonilla credit, he thought, I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of guys, you give them that money up front, it would be long gone. But you talk about like millionaire, it's like one of those lottery deals where you just sit there and wait, oh, what's in the mail today? 1.2. That's July 1st.
We can celebrate Bobby Bonilla Day again next year on July 1st once again. Unfinished business when we come back. Hey everybody, welcome back. We've got some unfinished business to talk about, and we're going to start with Kim.
All right, well, the World Cup's going on. You got Abby Wambach and, what's expected to be her final chance at a World Cup championship. Now, she needs this championship to define her career, whether she plays the entire game or whether she plays a minute of it. Why? Because this is what people are going to remember her for. And it got me thinking of other athletes throughout time other great athletes at their sport who haven't won championships. And you got Barry Sanders, you got Bills fans would argue maybe Bruce Smith, maybe Jim Kelly. But the reason why Abby, out of all these athletes, is so much more important is because on a global scale, she is the best in the world at her sport. And she is the face and the name of her sport. So the reason why she needs this is because this is going to be her legacy-defining moment. Again, whether she plays the entire game or she only plays a minute of it, she needs this to define her career and to solidify her spot in history of women's sports.
I think the other interesting thing is with Abby is it's soccer. Mm-hmm. We have football, we have basketball, all these countries that are most popular in America. Soccer is the global.
Yes, on the global scale. Yeah.
That's just
and the other thing that's interesting is she has embraced this. She's put it on herself. She said, yeah, you're darn right, I need this.
Yes.
So she hasn't shied away from them at all. So that's why I think everybody's rooting for her.
Well, the sad thing is, if she doesn't win it, she gets forgotten forever.
I think so too, yeah.
Ted Williams is one of the greatest ball players of all time because he played America's pastime, even though he didn't get a championship. Mia Hamm, we know her name because she won a championship. Brandi Chastain, we know her name because she won a championship. 20 years from now, if she doesn't win, who the heck was Abby Wambach? And what a terrible thing that would be.
That'd be catastrophic from a standpoint of watching her play. That would be a real shame. All right, Duffy, take it away. What do you got?
Sticking with women's soccer, right? Now, I'm not a soccer guy. I'm not going to hold it against you if you are a soccer person, because you know how nuts I am with the Bills and the Sabres. I understand passion. Here's my problem. I'm watching the USA women's game the other night. And I asked a question on Twitter. They're doing the penalty kicks and everything. My question was, has any goalie ever guessed right in the history of penalty kicks, right? People start lighting me up. Oh, you don't like soccer. You don't understand. You don't like soccer. You should give soccer a chance, right? Here's what I don't get. Everyone I was paying attention to on Twitter, all 5,000 people, 4,000 people that I follow here in Rochester, were going crazy about how great women's soccer is and how I should get into it. Hey, how about this, you hypocrites? All these women playing in the World Cup play here in Rochester. You could have watched every single one of these girls at a Western New York Flash game, and you don't. It costs $6 to get in. The Flash do a fantastic job of presentation. I don't watch soccer, and I've been to multiple Western New York Flash games. If you're going to sit here on Twitter last night and tell me how I need to open my mind more and be more of a women's soccer fan, be more like you, how about you spend the money and get out of your house and stop being that person once every 2 World Cup Olympics that tells me how I'm a bad person because I don't like what you like when you're not supporting it in the first place. I'm done. I'm angry. I'm done.
Will you do the Twitter voice again for me?
I mean, but do I have a point? Am I right? I mean, you see the same thing with hockey, too. Guys who never watch hockey all of a sudden want to jump in when it's playoff time. You can like it. Just don't chastise me for not understanding it. I'm not very smart.
And besides, there's plenty of other things to get mad at you for.
Mike, go ahead.
We talked about the Knicks a little bit, and I find this to be an interesting dynamic, not just going on in the NBA, but really in all sports. In the day, it used to be, you got to go to New York, you got to go to LA if you want to be the guy. Look at the landscape of pro sports going on right now. Look at a sport like football where Andrew Luck's becoming a star, but you got Aaron Rodgers as maybe the biggest star in the NFL, or Russell Wilson in Seattle. They're not in New York, they're not in LA. You can be a star. In the NBA, LeBron's back in Cleveland. I mean, Kevin Durant does commercials. He's in Oklahoma City. You don't have to be that guy. People will find you. Maybe even on Twitter. They will find you. You can become a superstar. The days of the big market teams and the big cities being the draw for players are long gone. The money is there. You can make it in those big cities, but when they say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere, you really can in most pro sports.
I'm going to follow up on what you just said, and I don't have to say very much because we're cutting a little short on time here, so I'll get right to it. Phil Jackson is getting paid a lot of money to be in New York City and run this Knicks organization and bring them back to prominence if they have even been prominent in 40 years. But if you're going to continuously build for the future through the draft, mind you, they don't have a lot of draft picks the next few years, without being able to draw in big free agents, then what exactly is Phil Jackson doing? Take that money, put it somewhere else, and Phil, walk away like it seems like he's wanted to do ever since he stepped foot into Madison Square Garden. That's going to do it for this week. Kim, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. This is fun.
Duffy, always a pleasure, sort of.
You're all welcome for what just happened here.
I figured as much. And Mike, I'll see you in a couple hours.
Sounds good.
All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching the original Rochester Press Box. We'll see you next week.